I have to brush off all the fire and brimstone that is up here. Congressman Harris, he's a very tough act to follow. I am not a preacher. I was a bartender, which I think a lot of preachers would probably say there's a lot of similarities there. You can guess which ones they are. The last time I consider myself an unofficial Eagle lady. I think that's what Phyllis used to call them. Chris mentioned about working on the platform most recently. First platform I ever worked on, I did it under the tutelage of Phyllis Schlafly in 2004. And what an incredible woman. And there's things I do today, and I still react like, oh no, what would Phyllis think about that? Because all I can remember is from that very first platform, I was with the Family Research Council. All my issues were done. We were up all night the night before because it was if you've ever worked through one of those, Phyllis stands right by you the whole time. You're up all night, working on amendments, everything else. And all my issues were done. It's like 11 o'clock at night. I made sure that Phyllis and the young woman who was working for her had a safe way home to the hotel in New York City, if there is such a path in New York City. And I walked up to Phil, and all that was left was the immigration issue, which at the time I didn't cover. And I walked up to Ms. Schlafly and said, okay, you're all set to go home, to go back to the hotel. I'm going to head out now. She goes, why are you leaving? She goes, and I just go, well, all my issues are done, and I'm pretty tired. She goes, wimp. I sat right back down, and at 1 o'clock, I walked her back to her hotel. And just understood that Phyllis gave her all, and she did not understand when others did not, because she just loved this country so much. Now, first, before talking on the issue at hand, Chris gave a little bit of my background, except just to give it, I see a lot of, I always like it when I'm the oldest person in the room, and from the looks of it, I am today again. Except I started, after working in politics for a little while, working in the real world for about 5 years, I then went to a group called National Taxpayers Union, which is fiscally conservative. And then after working for what was big oil, I worked for cutting taxes. I wanted to go to non-controversial issues, and I went to Family Research Council, where for about 11 years I ran their government affairs and their C4. And that was during the first time I met Congressman Harris. He was Reverend Harris, and he was the leading fighter for us in North Carolina on the marriage amendment, in passing it in North Carolina. After 11 years there, I was approached by the March for Life to establish their government affairs in C4. I did that for about 8 years, and then kind of went out on my own, and now I currently do the same kind of work, because this is the kind of work I just love. It's to be able to do what you love for something you love is a precious gift, and so for the last 4 years, I've been with Catholic Vote, and it's just great to be able to work alongside people like Chris and Tabitha, not Grant, who I don't know if you've heard from yet, but I've been asked to talk about the issues of life and what a significant difference an election makes. After the Dobbs decision, the pro-life movement, the pro-life movement mostly, we were caught off guard. We knew it was coming, and there's no way we could have caught on guard. This was God moment, this Dobbs amendment. There's no way we could have been fully prepared for it. Except the others, we were set back a little bit. A lot of politicians, now even unfortunately President Trump, but a lot of politicians took a step back, thought the life issue was toxic, and did not want to touch on the issue. So we fought with a platform, and even though we lost on the platform, we were very encouraged by the conversations we were having with the Trump administration, the people coming into the Trump administration. Because what Joe Biden did after the Dobbs decision was he didn't care about the law. He didn't care about precedent. He made sure that the federal government was the biggest provider and biggest promoter of abortion. And one of the first things President Trump did was change all that and reversed. A allowed for for the Mexico City policy to stop foreign funding of abortions. He took a second look at Title X, so we're not subsidizing abortion providers. And he allowed Congress to pass, for the first time ever, as you've heard, I've been in this business for quite a long time, the funding abortion giant Planned Parenthood, and that's her full name. It's on their, if they have a birth certificate, it would be abortion giant Planned Parenthood, because when you make over $1 billion a year, you're not a mom and pop operation. You're ending mom and pops. And so to fund Planned Parenthood on the reconciliation bill, which we recently did, and granted it was just for 1 year, except that's 1 year more than we've ever been able to do before. And it's setting them back, and they have to look at other revenue streams. I think there's over like 40 abortion facilities that have closed across the United States. And each one that closes means that's a baby one step closer to life. So we need to celebrate that. To continue forward, though, we need to, because I hear you're going to be meeting with offices later. We need them to hear that we need that extended. We've shown it can be done. Now we need to defend Planned Parenthood even farther. There's some things called Obamacare subsidies, which are these credits that during COVID, Joe Biden put in. It was basically a slush fund to insurance companies and to his pals and everything like that. And even though COVID supposedly is over, those subsidies are still going and pouring billions of dollars into the pockets of Joe Biden's Democrats' friends, as well as there are no pro-life protections on those. So we are currently providing directly for abortions in the states that goes around the Hyde Amendment. If you're all familiar with the Hyde Amendment, which supposedly stops taxpayer funding of abortions, what a lot of people don't realize, it only does that if the money is going through HHS and Medicare, Medicaid funds. Since this money was not, it was going straight to the states, it's been used for abortions over the last 4 to 5 years now. The left wants to re-up. It's the Democrats' main priority for this fall, is to re-up those subsidies. We are fighting for pro-life protections, but I'm sorry, pro-life protections cannot pass in the current Senate situation. So what we're asking is for the subsidies to die. There's no need for them, and there's just no need for them. It's not, nobody will be kicked off. Grandmas aren't going to be thrown off a cliff or anything like that. But we need to stop those subsidies. With the Trump administration as well, there are questions. I don't know where your position on IVF. IVF is seen as, it's of course very destructive. Not enough talk is about what it does to women, surrogacy, and things along those lines. The current National Defense Authorization Act has taxpayers. It's just the old argument we used to have for Planned Parenthood. If you're for abortion or not is the secondary. Taxpayers should not be funding this type of evil. And this is the case with IVF as well. And within the NDAA, so we're asking members of Congress to stop funding that as well. There are other things that Congress needs to start taking a look at. I think it's now over 60% of abortions are done through the mail, through a drug. And you're hearing now more and more horror stories of women who are having their babies aborted and they didn't even know it because their boyfriends or the fathers or their parents have slipped these abortion drugs into their foods, into the drinks, to cause them to abort. We need Congress to address this. We need the White House to address this. And there's novel ways to do this. There's some great states like Texas have stopped distributing the abortion drug within their states. However, it still gets mailed in, so that you need the federal government to get involved. And just to back up a little bit, the federal government needs to get involved. You still hear from members of Congress, and if you're allowed to, if cameras are around, slap them on the side of the head if they say this to you, as I stare right at a camera. Again, my name is Chris Ullman, if anybody is recording this. No, but they think that Dobbs sent it all back to the states. It did not. It sent it to the legislators. It opened up the door for Congress to finally take a stance, to stand up for life, and they need to do that. I don't care if it's tough or not. Too often we try to make our policies by what will the people accept, not with what is right and then how do we address it to the people. And that has set back the pro-life movement, I think, for a long time in trying to think like they think of what we can get past instead of what is right. Dobbs would not have happened if that had happened. The Dobbs, since they gave me a mic, my theory on how Dobbs happened was you have a whole bunch of pro-life national groups, all who want to end abortion. You have a whole bunch of activists in the states, all who want to end abortion. The national groups decide the way forward is we need to get the right judges in there. And the state groups are just like, well, no, we got to save the babies now. And sometimes those things came in conflict. Things like personhood bills or the heartbeat bill were normally opposed on the national level because it's like, no, because the Supreme Court isn't ready yet. Who cares if the Supreme Court is ready or not? And the state groups are like, no, we want to save babies as much as possible, push it as far as possible. However, if those two hadn't done their own paths interacting and laws in Texas and Mississippi and Alabama coming up to the Supreme Court and the court being ready because the national groups did take the judicial stance, we would have never had the Dobbs decision. So if you're at all familiar with the pro-life movement, there's a lot of division in it, and sometimes we just got to understand, you take your path, I'll take my path. We're going to meet at the end, and that's when the final judge comes. Now, sorry, that was just my little side rant. Now, there are a number of other things, and I don't know if you're going to have people address also that right now they're currently fighting over appropriations, and a lot of these appropriations, while the federal government love DOGE, love what the president's doing, Congress is still a little slow to the act. Even though they defund an abortion giant Planned Parenthood, and the president has started defunding Planned Parenthood or abortion in other ways, and the president has also done a tremendous work in protecting women and women's sports and protecting bathrooms, protecting children from this whole trans agenda. There is all over the current appropriations bills funding for hospitals that do both abortions as well as trans mutilations. Words matter. Transmutilations on children. So these are other things just talking to, and there's good people doing this. They don't understand like, oh, well, I'm getting money for the hospital in my district. What they don't understand is if that hospital does trans surgeries or not in their district. So ask them what kind of earmarks you have out there.